Alright, here we are in the Mage Night board game once again. We are about to commence with Night 2, which would be round 4 of our solo conquest playthrough. We're taking Tovak here through the countryside and laying waste, as Mage Knights tend to do. I like to begin the round kind of taking stock of where I am. I'm sitting here on the edge of a core tile, which I did expose. I'm in a mage tower. I've killed the draconum that was next to me, and I've got a keep next to me, which is going to increase my hand size by a good bit. Now, I've got to kind of consider my options here. Obviously, having exposed the first core tile, the remaining core tiles are going to be what flops next when I start revealing terrain. And those are not placeable in this location right here. So going this way, even going up here, because core tiles have to be placed adjacent to two tiles, even going up this way would be nigh on idiotic at this point. So I really have two options. I could go here and flip a tile, and there could be a city right there. But you know, it might not prove to be a city, of course, as well, but I've got a 2/3 chance of it, given that there are 4 tiles and 1 non-city already flopped. And here's the thing, I'm not anticipating attacking that city right now. I might actually be in a position to do that, but why force the issue? Taking on the city before I'm stronger is just going to result in the possibility of having to assault it multiple times, take a bunch of wounds, and then what do I do with myself after that, even assuming I take it? I think I probably would, but it seems like the better idea, given that I want to be moving along at a pretty good clip here. I want to be maximizing my score as much as possible. What I'm thinking I want to do is, well, it's possible I come here and whatever I flop gives me some nice opportunities. And if I'm going this way, then I might wind up heading into this dungeon. Who knows? You know, it's not like this is a bad option. But there could be a mountain range here. I don't remember the layouts of the tiles, but a mountain range or a lake right here, prohibiting me from coming back down here. I'm thinking what I want to do instead, even though it's a lot of terrain, I'm thinking what I want to do is either pop down here and grab one of these sweet golden units that just showed up, or possibly just coming this way, grabbing a spell, taking my time, and maybe recruiting in the keeps and mage towers, depending on what shows up. So if I flop a ton of influence, maybe I'll stop at the refugee camp before heading this way. But if I don't, then maybe I just go directly here, build up my power base even further, add another keep, and for all I know there's a city right here when I flop that tile, allowing me to go ahead and assault that with the keep increasing my hand size next time. So I've got a bunch of options, and if that is a city, I'm going to be able to go pretty far this turn. So maybe I take these guys out. Maybe I come up here to the dungeon. Maybe I come over here for these guys. Maybe I even bop down to the monastery before coming back up and dealing with that city on day 3. Now, one thing to bear in mind if you are trying to maximize your end of game score, one route you can take is to try to finish early, because you do get bonus points for finishing rounds ahead of schedule. So if you finish on day 3, which is a possibility for me at this point, if I go flop a city and take it this round, I could certainly take the next city the following round and be done before the end of, by the end of day 3. And that'll net me a bunch of bonus points. But you weigh that against what are the extra points you would get from spending that extra day killing stuff. And there's a pretty good chance, if you're moving along quickly, that you're going to be able to match that. In fact, most of the times when I've ended early. They haven't really been my best scores. And that would really, as far as I'm concerned, be the only reason to try to end early, would be because of that score bonus. So what I'm thinking is I'm pretty safe just dealing with the first city on day 3 and then the second city on night 3, which means I have this night to just play with, basically. I'm not going to be far from the cities. They're going to be over here when I start revealing stuff. And like I said, I can come into the center of the map here and just start grabbing victory points and units and spells and all that good stuff. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Where we stand in the big picture here is I am at 44 experience. I'm pretty close to getting another command token, which is Unit Heaven. I'm actually getting a bonus. Well, I'm not getting a bonus, but I'm on the happy side of even. On the reputation track, we have the Ultim Guardians and the Heroes. They're not my favorite gold units. The Guardians I like. The Heroes, they certainly have their uses. I'd take them over a swordsman if you were just handing out units, but they also have certain limitations in that you have to pay influence to use them in an assault. But you know, that's fair enough. They're certainly worth getting. So that's what I'm looking at here. I've got a monastery offer. Here's the skills offer. And the spell offer. I do like expose. I find expose, the powerful expose, can be gigantic when assaulting a city. And that's about where we stand. So let's come down here and make our decision about our tactic for the night. Of course, we're going to start by drawing our hand, and we want to take stock of where we are. We have a hand size now of 6, but that is increased because we are next to a keep that we own. And of course, we own 2 keeps total, which means our hand size starts at 6, but it bumps up to 8 as a result of being next to that keep. So we actually begin the round drawing 8 cards. And they are the following. I do have some influence in my hand. And I have a bunch of movement. So I'm going to have to make a decision whether or not I want to stop by that refugee camp after all. One reason I might not want to is I do have 3 units. So, I mean, I could spend the scouts to move down there and then cover up the scouts if I recruited somebody. But I am really close to getting a command token. And I do have Call to Glory coming up here sometime. And I have a black die in the source as well. So, I could very likely flop Call to Glory pretty soon. I certainly can conquer a Mage Tower here pretty soon. Get there, conquer that. And in conquering that, I'm virtually guaranteed to be going up a level and releasing a command token. So I feel like playing that aggressively. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and make a beeline for that Mage Tower. If I can make the cards cooperate, I'll have to take a look at that later. But first I want to consider the tactics on offer. And of course I could guarantee I'm going first. I could virtually guarantee I'm going first and grab Mana Search, which is pretty handy. It really gives you some flexibility when you can re-roll dice in the source to get them to cooperate. Right? You get a powerful spell. You just need black mana, and it isn't there. You got a couple of shots at getting it. You can also unlock those gold dice and get them back into action Mana Search is really nice. And once again, I'm not going to pick Sparing Power, not because it isn't awesome, but just because I like to at least have a shot at it, having it on the last round. If I don't take it, there's a 1 in 3 chance the dummy player grabs it randomly, but those odds are in my favor. So the real decision here is Midnight Meditation and make it less likely that I go first. Mana Search, which I really like. I mean, Midnight Meditation is good too, but it's just a one-time thing. You can reshuffle your hand a bit. Mana Search is really handy. It's probably my favorite, other than Sparing Power. And it comes close to guaranteeing that I'm going to go first. So I think I'm just going to grab that. And yeah. I do have some options here, but I guess before I do that, we'll shuffle up that deck and see what the dummy draws. But once again, what Mana Search is going to allow me to do is once per turn, before you use mana from the source, you may re-roll up to 2 mana dice in the source. When choosing dice to re-roll, you must pick gold if there are any, which is not in a solo game. Like, why wouldn't you? I can see in a competitive game why you might not want to, but solo, like, that's kind of what you would do automatically anyway, because you pretty much, outside of a couple of cards, you can't use them for Jack anyway, so you might as well get them back into circulation. So that's not really a handicap in a solo or even a co-op game, really. So that's where we are. Let's go ahead and get the dummy squared away, see who's going first, and begin. All right, zoomed in here on the dummy. Let's see what we get. Midnight Meditation. Okay. So I will not be picking that on night 3, but that's okay because I'm probably going to pick Sparing Power, which will next time around, that means I will be going second in the final night, leaving me with 1 fewer turn, but I can make 1 turn a couple of cards stronger in my hand, which when you're attacking the strongest city, I find to be useful. So we're good there. And the dummy is set. I'm still going first, so now we are off to deciding what I want to do. Okay, I've got 2 movement cards in my hand. I've got a card that can be used as movement. I've got a couple of, we'll call them utilities. I don't have much in the way of combat right now. My initial thought was, let's come down here and hit this guy. Now I could have changed things around and gone with Midnight Meditation and tried to get some combat into my hand, but I'm also looking at I'm looking at the fact that I am on a Mage tower. There's at least 1 really good spell in the offer, and I do have influence in my hand, which when I use it up is going to allow me to draw more cards, which is what I would have gotten with Midnight Meditation anyway, as another draw of cards, not guaranteed cards or anything like that. So my play here is, let's turn this influence into a spell. Now the spell that I have my mind set on right now is Expose, because I love that for city assaults, especially if you can play Mass Expose. And even this round, it's going to be one of the first cards I draw. That's actually going to help me potentially attacking that that first Mage tower when I bop down there, because you take away a fortification and get ranged attack with just a white die. And now I have to be careful with that again, because I want to make sure I have a white die to go with the black die in the source for when Call to Glory comes up, which might be next round. It might be the very end of the round. And if I don't move quickly enough, depending on the dummy, I might not see it at all, but still, I don't want it to show up and not be able to play it, because snagging the Ultim Guardsman for essentially free is not something you want to pass up. Okay, so taking a look at the situation that I'm in terms of getting that spell, I need 7 influence and then a white die. That's the way you buy spells in a mage tower. You spend 7 influence and add the mana color of the spell in question in order to acquire the spell. The problem here is I do have a white die in the source, and I do have a white crystal, but I'm trying to preserve that in case Call to Glory comes up. And both of my influence cards, well, one of my influence cards is white. The other one hurts my reputation if I power it with red. So that's kind of my, can I find another way to get white so that I don't hurt my reputation, given again that I have this kind of obsession with keeping that at least decent, allowing me to recruit better. Even after taking that first city, I love to be able to recruit units in the cities when possible. And in the red city, for instance, you can buy artifacts, you can buy spells in the blue city, you can get units in the white, and you can get, I think, advanced actions in the green, all for influence. So having a bunch of influence after you take that first city is always handy, and therefore having the influence bump from a reputation is good. And remember, your reputation is going to take at least 1 or 2 hits when capturing a city. And then I'm planning on the next couple of rounds on assaulting a mage tower and then probably a keep. So that's my concern there, and I'm thinking if I can generate a white crystal instead of a red one, instead of using up a red one, then that's probably the better way to go. So I've absolutely got a way of doing this, and in fact, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. If I play mana draw with the white die in the source, that allows me to grab a mana die from the source, set it equal to that color, and then get 2 tokens of that color and put the die back, right? So, well, this die, because I'm playing this as my die from the source, that's going to get re-rolled, and who knows what it will turn out to be. But if I grab this green die, which I don't have any immediate plans for, I can set that equal to white, put it back in the source, guaranteeing that I have white in the source, and get 2 white tokens this turn. Which is going to allow me then to go ahead and use those. I can play Promise with the white token, and that's 4 influence. Now, I'm up on the influence track, reputation track, but I'm not getting an influence bonus just yet. So it's just straight up 4. And then I can just play Threaten normally for another 2 influence. That's 6. And then I can play any card I want sideways, really, at this point, in order to then spend this white token to grab Expose. Remember, I have to spend the white mana on top of any that I'm using to generate the influence. This token here is just getting me the influence. This one is part of the purchase price of the spell. I think I'm going to do Crystallize just because I have a bunch of crystals already. Probably going to be playing mana from the source most of my turns, and as a result, this isn't going to be too useful to me. Tranquility might, depending on how the fighting goes, and I can always draw extra cards with it, whereas Crystallize doesn't give me that option. So I'm going to go ahead and, it's because I don't anticipate using the crap out of this card here. I'm going to play that sideways. That gives me 4, 6, 7 influence. I could turn it into 8 with I don't give a damn, but I don't need to. because all I need is 7. I add to that the white mana token, which is going to allow me to grab expose and throw that onto the top of my deed deck. And I think that will be my my first turn. Because I haven't moved, I'm still drawing up to 8 next round. Let's go ahead and clear all of what. This is a little funky. Okay. Those crystals go away. These guys get gathered up. I keep hitting the wrong keys. I don't know. I'm off on my game today. And, okay, of course we knew expose was coming. And we got definitely some interesting options here. Heroic Tale is interesting. I'll have to think about that. But I did get some good combat cards, and I do have movement cards to play with. And units, so I'm definitely in a position to be able, especially with expose and a white die in the source. I've got options here for, and I do have mana search as well. So while I've been careful to preserve that white die in the source, it's not like in a pinch I couldn't risk it, because with mana search I have 2 shots around a turn to roll another white. Rolling gold wouldn't help me, but I can roll a white. So I can keep trying to get that die back into the source, even if I do have to use it at some point. But yeah, that's my first turn. We'll go ahead and roll our die, do the dummy, and get back here. Alright, so let's pop over here to take a look at the dummy. We'll give the die a quick roll. Coming up with green. And we'll do the flop. Oh gosh. Okay. So because he's got 4 crystals in his inventory, he's flopping 4 additional cards. So that hurt. And there weren't too many greens that came with those 7 cards. So in addition to flopping 7 cards, leaving him with only 12, meaning if another green comes up, he's down to 5 already. This is where going green so heavily is going to bite you. I might get lucky the rest of the round and not flop another green, but I didn't chew up a lot of greens in that flop, so I'm not loving how that's going right there, unfortunately. Okay, but we'll go ahead and proceed with my turn here, because what else are you going to do? Now, okay, so I do have a little bit of movement, and I do have some combat cards. So one option would be hightail it after these guys and try to take them out. But I also flopped a really good card for recruiting. And the heroes can be recruited in a keep. Remember, if Call to Glory comes up, I'm grabbing the Ultim Guardians because they're only available in cities. So, because I'm not planning on taking a city this round, they wouldn't be available to me. So if I want to grab both these gold units while I can, I'm going to recruit the heroes. Now, I do have another keep coming up, and there are villages in the vicinity, and of course I could go here, but that's actually, and they're available in villages, so their cost wouldn't be increased there, but it would be a detour. Whereas if I'm going this way, I'm going through a keep. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop in this keep and recruit the units this turn, have them available, and go from there. The only downside to that is I don't, I'm really close to leveling up, and I will level up when I take that keep, but I don't currently. That will give me another command token, but I don't have it unlocked just yet. So if I do recruit them, I'll have to replace somebody. The obvious choice for me, as far as I'm concerned, would be the scouts. Which means I would like to use them before I recruit over them, so at least I can get something out of them. I could spend them to get move 2, and then just play one of these 2 cards to get into that keep. And I'm going to be using the white die in the source. Remembering that I just really need to preserve this. The white die in the source is so that I can play white without using that up. Now I do hope to use expose later, but I do also have, I can re-roll 2 dice in the source, so even if I run out, it's a little risky, but I might have, if I use the white die, I can re-roll it, and then if it doesn't come up white again, I can re-roll that and whatever else is in the source. So I've got like 3 shots at rolling a white. And then I think I have Mana Storm coming up as well that allows me to re-roll everything in the source. So I got a lot of ways that I can generate white later on. And there is a white crystal mine here. So in an absolute pinch, I could shoot down here to grab the Guardians. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the scouts for move 2 and reveal a tile at a distance of 2, because I am right next to this. And that'll allow me to place one of these tiles and have a better picture of where I'm trying to go next. So I think that's what I'll do. And it is the Red City, which plops a couple of Draconum and a Ruin, which I don't reveal yet because it's night. Okay, so that might be a play, is go through here and then come up this way, possibly revealing this. Although I might not want to, because what if there's a rampager here that prevents me from getting up here, etc. But I'm thinking way too far ahead. Okay, so that used the scouts. Now I can recruit over them and just replace them. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Stamina with the blue crystal from my inventory, which gives me move 4, which is enough to move on to the keep. Another benefit of staying here is this allows me to continue drawing up to 8 cards, even though I'm not going to be using too many, unfortunately. Heroic Tale with the white die from the source gives me 6 influence, and then +1 reputation and 1 fame. And I need 9 to recruit these guys. That's 6. That's 1 rep and 1 fame if I recruit, which I'm going to. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to play, even though it's a combat card, I think I'm going to play Instinct, because this is a combat card as well. And I'm thinking I might do Expose, so I would like to keep my ranged options open here. And in that eventuality, I'm probably not likely to need Tranquility right off the bat. I will need movement to get over there, because it's going to take 6, I believe, to get onto that Mage Tower, which is in another wasteland. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play Instinct for another 2. I could use a red crystal, but again, Tranquility is not a big deal for me. So that's 8, and then this is 9, and I could make it 10 if I wanted to with I don't give a damn. And that should be enough, yeah, to recruit the heroes. So I can go ahead and drop them here, get rid of these scouts, and they come to me kind of ready to rock and roll. Alright, set this aside over here. We'll roll that and flop the dummy. And I did use 4 cards, which isn't too bad. Especially with the assault coming up, I'm probably going to... why'd that go down to 5? Anyway, okay. More combat and a bunch of red. Had I known the ruby ring was coming, I probably would have used that crystal. But then the ruby ring wouldn't have come because I would have still had tranquility. Anyway, I'm babbling. That is the end of my second turn of the round. I haven't made much use of mana search yet, but I might, depending on what I roll next time, if I don't get a white, because I'm going to want to use expose and preserve my die here, if I possibly can. So, we'll go ahead and yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll flop the dummy player and see where we're at. And it's blue. Alright. Flopping the dummy, we get a red. I do not like seeing that. And another red. Okay. And a third red. Okay. I guess I'll take that. I burned through a lot of red to get that mirror 3 card flop, but I suppose it'll have to do. Okay, let's come back here and take a look at what we want to do. Okay, so let's take stock of where we're at here. What I'm staring at right now is I want to go after this keep. I keep calling it a keep. Mage Tower. Now, if I move onto the plains during the day, that will expose these guys, but I'm going to have to spend the 6 and dive in blind if I do that. But I've got expose with a white crystal. I got crushing bolt with a green crystal. I've got a green die in the source. Cold toughness, 3 heroes, and combat card here. I could even do mana storm sideways if I needed. Here's the thing: if I do play expose, right now I only have 1 white mana, which I'm loath to use, but I will if I have to. If I play expose, I get ranged attack, and of course I take away their fortifications, even if they're double fortified, and their resistances. Although that's less of a factor because I think the only elemental attack I have is from the Red Cape monks. So it's really more about the fortifications, and then I get ranged attack, but it's like I have to play that in order for this to be useful, and that uses up my 1 white crystal. Now I could roll dice in the source using mana search to try to get white dice. But basically if I don't play this, these guys are no good to me in combat anyway. So it looks like I've got a ton of ranged attack, but I really don't because of my dearth of white. But I do have this, and I do have the crossbowmen, and this does give me ranged attack. So that's 2, 4, 7 ranged attack right there. That's going to be enough to kill most of these gray enemies, I believe. 7 ranged attack should do it for The only thing that would really matter would be the golems, but if I play exposed, they're no longer physically resistant, so I could take them out too. So 7 with no resistances means I'm set, even not using those. So yeah, I'm going to save the green mana crystal for Crushing Bolt, which means I want to play March and both swiftnesses in order to be able to move, to get the 6 movement that I need. This is not going to be enough to help me, so I'll have to do that anyway. Which means this is what I'm going to have for combat. With my units, which should be plenty. In fact, again, this, and this should be enough, and I have the crystals to play it. So now what I want to do is think about what my options are for maybe getting some more white into the source. I could re-roll all dice in the source with Mana Storm, but I would have to use up my crystal to do it, and that would get rid of that black, which I'm trying to save. So I don't want to do that. But what if I play the basic effect, which would allow me to choose a die in the source that's showing a basic color, take that crystal and roll it. So play this would give me a crystal. I don't have blue crystals in my inventory, and I have a blue die in the source. I could grab a green and re-roll the green in order to generate a crystal, a green crystal. But I just like having that flexibility. Yeah, because I have this movement here. And if I play Expose now, then I won't have it next round when or next turn if I go after that keep, which, yeah, that's, who knows what's happening next. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this, and I'm going to grab a blue crystal as a result. Now that's going to require me to re-roll that die before returning it to the source. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so let's re-roll this and see what we get. It's black. Alright, I'd really like to get a white, but I'd also kind of want to preserve this green. Mana Search, using Mana Storm, I don't think counts as using a die from the source, because I still have a die I can use from the source. So I'm going to use Mana Search. I don't need 2 black in the source right now. And I'd like to have another shot at white. So I'm going to use Mana Search to reroll this, but I'm going to keep the green for Crushing Bolt later. And it's another green. Okay. Well. Okay, I've got plenty of green to play with now. But only 1 die from the source. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to play these 3 cards to move on to that keep and assault, whatever the heck is in there. So let's see what we get when we do that. And that is a Fire Mage. Which is interesting. Okay, so Fire Mages are resistant to fire, so they're not going to be good targets for my souped up red capes. But that's about all I need to worry about there. If I play Expose, he loses that. So I could play Expose with white And then between that and crushing bolt, I could take him out. But it's occurring to me that maybe I want to save that, because I'm going after this keep right after I finish up here. And cold toughness here is ice block 5 plus 1 ice block for each ability or color of attack depicted on the token. He's got red color in virtue of being fire, so that's 5 plus 1, so that's 6 cold block, ice block, which is enough to block him outright. And then I could just kill him with physical attacks. Especially since I have cold swordsmanship for free to attack. Yeah, then all I have to use up is the crossbow. So instead of using expose and crushing bolt with my white crystal from the source and a green die, instead I will just yeah, I'm going to play cold toughness and use a blue crystal instead of a white crystal. That blocks him. Then I can tap cold swordsmanship for 2, either ice or physical. And then I just need 3 attack, and I can actually use the crossbows for 3 attack and take him out as he is. So that will allow me to take these guys out for 5. So that is 5 fame right there. I do take a hit to my reputation for assaulting a fortified site, but I go from 44 to 49, and that also gives me this command token, and my armor is now up to 4 on top of everything else. And I have taken a mage tower. I forgot to replenish this last time out. Okay. Got a couple of options here. Do I want to take space bending, or do I want to take meditation? I think I'm leaning towards meditation at this point for 2 reasons. One, this is potentially another green crystal going into the dummy if I don't take it. And this one would be a couple of turns away, although it looks like I'm adding maybe some blue. Burning Shields is an option, but he doesn't have any red crystals. Meditation would give me meditation would give me some things to play with here, so I think I'm going to grab that. What this does is basically you can increase the size of your deck, and in a pinch you can actually pick specific cards, and you can choose to put them at the top or the bottom of your deck. And you draw over your hand limit, so you increase the size of your deck, but you also get those cards right back into your hand right away. So even if all you do is play them sideways, you get extra points out of it. I kind of like that, especially with all that green in the source. So I think I'll take meditation. And again, that goes to the top of my deck. Now I'm only drawing up to 6 cards right now, because I am no longer next to a keep that I own. I do, however, need to mark this Mage Tower. So I'll drop that down there, lock it in place, and we're all set. Okay. Let's go back over here and refresh the spell offer. More blue. Okay. And that is that turn. I wound up not using a die from the source there. But who knew? Well, I didn't know what enemy I was going to draw, so you kind of take it as you go. Had I left that blue die in the source, I could have just used that. But the only benefit to that is I would have had mana draw in my hand, or mana storm in my hand, instead of having used it. Anyway, I am drawing up to 6, which is my regular hand limit. So we'll go and see what we get there. We got whirlwind. Got a lot of spells in my hand right now. Okay. Not too bad. No dice to re-roll. We'll go ahead and we'll bop over to the dummy player here and see what he does. I like to see the green go away. It's only a blue. Okay, so he's down to 5. So if he draws anything other than green on his next flop, then it will take him 2 turns to use up his deck. And then another turn to declare, so odds are pretty good I have 4 turns left. If he does turn green, I only have 3. That's pretty much what I'm looking at there. Alright, so let's take stock of where we're at here. Alright, so I don't have too much in the way of influence going for me. I do, of course, have the heroes. And I'm in a Mage Tower, so I could be looking at recruiting or grabbing spells here, but I've built up a decent amount of spell cards. I don't know if I really want to dilly-dally around here for too much longer. There's nothing in that offer that's... Space Bending's pretty nice. It's especially nice if you're worried about movement or ugly terrain, but I've got a pretty open path to the Red City here, and I'm going to have potentially a city right here, or at worst up here or something, if I... maybe over here, if I have to go through this stuff. So, I mean... and I'll have double time throughout as well. I'm not hugely worried about my movement right now. I've got 2 green dice in the source. Source of a red green crystal here, and meditation. I'm thinking I might want to just go ahead and blitz this keep here. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that token. I'm going to move Tovak over here. And let's talk about how we're going to get moving, get enough movement. Alright, so this is my hand right here. I have 1 point of movement from double time. which actually for a change is going to help me in the night because with expose and crushing bolts, I don't have a ton of ranged options actually, but what I think I messed up in using the crossbowmen instead of the red capes, because their ranged attack could have conjoined with these for a better shot at killing something in the initial phase. But with cold swordsmanship, crushing bolts, couple of units on offer, I don't anticipate needing stout resolve. It's a nice handy card because it's very flexible, but it's not super powerful. And I don't have any wounds that I'm worried about right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play stout resolve, and I'm going to tap double time for the 3 movement that I need to move on to that keep. So that moves me on there. I will lose a point of reputation on the track there. And now I just need to find out what I'm fighting. And it is the golems. Okay, so if I play expose, if I play expose, I can take him out because that removes his fortification and also his physical resistance. And that is going to allow me to play 2 range attack and 3 siege, and that would allow me to kill him in the range attack phase. So I actually didn't need the crossbowman for that. But in order to do that, I'd have to use a green crystal, or green dye from the source, and my white crystal, which I would like to keep if I can. I mean, I got exposed for exactly this purpose, but the source has not been cooperating very much with me. I could roll to see if I get more white, but even then I'm using a crystal. And here's the thing. Golems are only 2 point of physical attack. The virtue of going ranged is you kill them before they attack, but this attack is nothing to me because I have the heroes, which are physically resistant. So that actually is a hit that they can absorb for me without even being wounded. So he's basically, I get to go to the attack phase against this guy for free. So the fortification is nothing. And I have cold swordsmanship in my pocket, which bypasses his attack resistance, his physical resistance, if I tap it for ice attack. And then I have the red capes. I think that's a better option, because what that'll allow me to do is, instead of using up my white crystal, playing expose, and then a die from the source for crushing bolt, I could use that die from the source for meditation to have a really big freaking hand next time. Because I'm going to go up to 9 cards after I take this keep, and then add those 2. I'll have 11 at the start of my next round, next turn. And all I would have to use up is a crystal, which I can get back later on with the ruby ring with no problem. I'll tap my red capes, but I'll still have these in my hand to play with. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Okay, so in attacking, I don't do anything in the ranged attack phase. I let his attack hit my heroes. That does nothing to my heroes. I'll tap my red capes with a red crystal for 4 fire attack. And then I will tap cold swordsmanship for 2 ice attack. So those are 6 points of attack that are not inefficient, and that's enough to kill this guy for that's going to get me 4 fame. Already took the hit on the reputation track, so I'll grab that fame really quick up to 53. And flip these back. They're not going to do anything the rest of this turn. The question now is, what do I want to do before the end of the round? I want to play meditation for sure. Might as well get those in there. And what that does is you randomly pick 2 cards from your discard and place them either on top or bottom of your D deck. At the end of the turn, you draw 2 cards over your hand limit. Now, I just captured a keep, so I'll drop that down there. I'll get my token on the map here. And that'll go there. Let's lock that in place. Okay. So I'm drawing up to 9 normally, and then I'm going to add the 2 over that limit to draw 11 for meditation. And I've got 7 right now. It's going to be 2 more. I'll do that at the end of the round. I'll just throw 2 random in there before I draw the 11. But what am I looking at doing from here? I could open this up and see what's here. But what might it be? It's either an open core tile or it's a city tile. This is the lower level city. So this is going to be my target next day round. And I've got a couple of turns to play with and a lot of cards, including yeah. Call to Glory's got to be coming up pretty soon, and I do have in my hand what I need to play it. So I'm going to be getting the Guardians. And the reason I care about that is one of their things is block 8 counts twice against swiftness. So I'm thinking I might want to run up here and get this dragon out of the way. Possibly dive into the dungeon and be in pretty good shape before assaulting the city. So the only question would be, would I want to reveal this before doing that? And I'm thinking maybe not, because what if there's something here that gets in my way? What would be the benefit of doing it? If I reveal the city there, I know there's a city there, but I'm going to go after the red city first. I can always reveal it at the end of my round later on. The reason I'm getting into this is I'm wondering whether I want to be using Crushing Bolt now or saving it for later. Could be handy going into that dungeon. But I don't know if I want to take up a spot in my hand. I'm going to get 11 cards, so I'm going to add a bunch of cards, but after next round I won't have that giant limit anymore, so I need to use a bunch of them. And this is not going to help me. If I'm planning on using it later, it's not going to help me much. I'm thinking what I might want to do is just grab a crystal with it. And then I've got Expose and Whirlwind to play with going forward. I also might not have too many turns. He could flop all of these cards, and I still have a bunch to burn through. So I think I'm going to try to use as many cards as I can here, because it's always good to stock up on crystals before you start worrying about city assaults. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Crushing Bolt just for a green crystal, and then I'll be drawing up to 11. Now before I do that, I've got to randomize this and throw those cards in there, and of course I've got to roll that. But let's clear this up, and that, I believe, is my turn. I think I've taken care of everything here. Yeah. All right. So all that's left is to wrap up and then flop the dummy. So let's do that. Okay. So first thing is to, flip this guy over and give it a good shuffle. I'll just take the 2 cards off the top and throw them down there. Meditation says you can put them on the top, so I'll just put them on the top rather than throwing them on the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and drop to 11 after we've rolled our die. Okay, we got a red. And we'll go and we'll flop this, see what we get. It looks like I only have just the 1 card left to draw, because I'm pulling such a massive hand now on this keep. Okay. Right. Okay. So then we just need to figure out what the dummy's doing and start planning our turn here. I like to see the green go away. Don't be green. It's blue. Okay. So he's got 1 card left. I got 1 card left, but I got 11 to play with on my turn here. I got a green and red in the source. But I can re-roll those if I want to, but it doesn't matter too much because I can only pull 1 die from the source. I have no cards in my hand that are going to change that. And I did flop Call to Arms, Call to Glory, so I know I'm going to be using that black die from the source and my white crystal. I know that because I'm just going to grab those guardians for sure. So the question is, looking forward, is there anything that I really especially want to have in my hand? In order to continue forward. Are there any dice that I know I'm going to want to roll here? I'm not thinking that there's anything in particular that I definitely want. I've got a couple of rage cards, but I've got plenty of red, so I might want to re-roll this red die because I have mana search. So I'm really far forward looking. I'm thinking maybe with whirlwind, I'm using up the white. I'm thinking with whirlwind coming up and with chivalry and expose, white might be something to look for. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll mana search here, hoping to possibly land a white, knowing that next round I could always roll again. So I might have multiple chances, but I'm going to have to start taking them to get them. So I want to roll that first before I go any further. And it goes back to red. So that was no help. Okay. But definitely the first thing I'm going to do is the black die from the source and the white crystal from my inventory in order to do Call to Glory. Recruit any 1 unit from the unit's offer for free. And I'm going to grab my Ultim Guardians. And I'm going to stick them in my empty slot here. And hooray. Hello Gold 4. Gosh, they're nice. Okay. Now the question is, do I do anything else? Again, I know I have two turns this round after this turn, but if I stay here, I'm going to draw back up to 9. But that means I'm not going to have access to this card unless I play a few of these. And I mean, I did draw a Heroic Tale again. That must have been from my meditation. Yeah, I think it was Meditation and Cold Toughness. Sorry, Heroic Tale and Cold Toughness. That I got back into my hand because of meditation. Now, I don't have white to play Heroic Tale with, but I can play it for its basic function and still get a hit to my rep. Yeah, I mean, I could move out of here, but if I move away from the keep and I don't chew up many cards, I'm not adding anything into my hand. I'm only drawing one more card, so it's not like... My thought is, if I'm using up a few cards now, I'm going to have all my cards in my hand before I move out of here. So I'll have all my options on the table. I'm not taking a penalty for the reputation track, but I'd like to massage that a little bit. The only unit in the offer is the swordsman, which would be 6 reputation. I think what I'm going to do is this. I'm not really like super enamored with the swordsman, but I could always put them in over the crossbows. And as a result, get +2 to my reputation. Looking forward to maybe recruiting. Or if I'm in the Red City buying, you buy artifacts in the Red City, right? Yeah, I could buy some artifacts with my reputation increases. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to play Heroic Tale for 3 influence. And I'm going to play my heroes for 5 influence. And that would be interacting, recruiting in the keep. So that would, between the two of them, be +2 to my reputation. And that is 3 plus 5 is actually 8, which is plenty to recruit these swordsmen, which I'm then going to put on top of my crossbows. Replace my crossbows with them. And yeah, as a result, I've got another unit to play with this round if I do sally forth and attack that dragon and dungeon and all of that stuff. Now, I only used 1 card in virtue of this. I've got other options for using cards. But let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I use up 1 more card, I'll have access to this other card here, which I'm not even really sure what it is. But if I go after that dragon next time, I would need 6 movement. Which I can get pretty easily. And then I can block him, and then I've got plenty of options for attacking. With cold swordsmanship, and yeah, okay. I'm going to hang on to the ruby ring just because it'll give me a crystal, but it'll also give me a token, which I might want to use with rage or something like that later. I'm going to move out next turn, and I think I'm going to hit that dragon. And I've got, I think, plenty in my hand to take him out with. So, I think I'm good as is. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm just going to call that a turn. As odd as that is, with only 2 turns left on all these cards, I'm anticipating blowing through a bunch of them pretty quick coming up. And then maybe having some left to go into the dungeon with. Or possibly explore that other tile. So I think I'm alright. I think I'm set. So I'll set this to one side. And I'll go ahead and roll this, see what we get. Green. Okay. Throw that away. And I'm drawing up to 9, which means I'm not drawing anything. And this guy flops his last card. And it comes back to me. And now I take a look at what I want to do. So I want to go 2, 4, and attack. That means I need 6 movement to attack that dragon. I have 4 between these 2 cards. But I'm thinking, why don't I just use a green die from the source with March and then play stamina. So I think that's my plan to move there. The reason being, I have red and green, obviously. I could use red with rage, but I'm not too worried about it, especially given the ruby ring situation. I'm going to get a rage boost for free, basically. I know I'm going to be blocking with this guy because I would love to, yeah, I want to save Whirlwind for that dungeon because I'm not going to be able to take units with me. That's another reason I'm so cavalier about using these guys up. I only have 2 turns left, and I'm thinking dragon, dungeon. If I hit that dungeon and I have Whirlwind available, that gives me a lot of options, especially with Cold Swordsmanship, and I don't give a damn in hand. I could even turn Expose into 3 attack in the attack phase. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm in pretty good shape damage-wise. It's really the movement that's going to make it hard for me. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the green die for March. And then that's only really an option for me. It's only a good option for me if I can get a white die. I got 2 shots at it. But I really want to get a white die into the source if I possibly can. So I'm going to go ahead and use my mana search here and see if I can get lucky and get a white die out of it. And I did not. Alright. Well, that is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and do what I was going to do anyway. I'll play March and Stamina. And that'll give me 6, which is enough to move me onto the dungeon space, and then I can engage that bad guy there. And as I said, well, let me go grab him for the visual. He is poison and swift, which means you have to block him with 10 points of block, or else take 5 points of damage, which will double wound any units, or will go wounds into your hand and into your discard. So he's kind of nasty if you let him attack you, but block 8 counts as 16 against swiftness, means that's plenty to block his 10. And remember, I didn't have any other plans if I am going into the dungeon with this guy. he won't come with me, he won't help. So I'm just going to block that guy with them, and he's done. And now I need to find a way to generate generate 9 points of attack. He's got no resistances, so I'm not worried about that. Again, the swordsmen are not coming with me, so I'm going to use them for 3 points of attack. I'm going to play cold swordsmanship for 2 points, so that's 5 right there. I just need 4 more. And I think what I want to do, I could play cold toughness and rage, but I don't know. I want to save cold toughness just in case I don't get whirlwind. I don't get that white die. I'm probably going to go down there. Unless I get lucky with my next roll, I'm going to have a pretty good shot at needing some block. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to play chivalry. And that'll help my reputation on top of everything else. And I'm going to play a rage. So that's 2, 5, 8, 10. And yeah. Yep. There's no reason not to play those two, so then it's just a question of how do I generate 4, and I don't have a really great way to generate 4. I could play 2 rage and keep chivalry, but my concern is if I pull something that's really hard to block, I might want to just, I go into the dungeon, I have to see what I get, but maybe I wind up just calling it a day and just trying to block and get out of there without wounds rather than taking a wound and killing something. So I want to have cold toughness, and I want to make sure I get that reputation boost now while I can. So I'm going to play it this way. So it's 2, 5, 8, 10 attack is enough to kill him. He was totally blocked by this, so he's done. And that is 7 fame, and then plus 3 to my reputation as well. And there's nothing to do to the map, so I'll go up here. That's plus 1, 2, 3. I'm actually in bonus territory here. And then it's plus 7 fame, taking me up to 60. So I'm really close to gaining a level. On top of it, plus I did use enough cards that now that I'm drawing back down to 6, I'm still going to get that last card into my hand for my last round. So I'll go ahead and clean that up. Throw this over here. And that's pretty much where we're at. The dummy player is going to declare. I'll go ahead and draw that now. It's concentration. I kind of knew that. I should have known that. And yeah, dummy player will declare. I roll this die before that, see what I get, and I can use mana search. But I'm expecting to hopefully get a white out of those 3 rolls there. So because I'm going to re-roll this, and then I'm going to re-roll. If I don't get a white, I kind of don't care too much, I think. So I'm just going to grab all 3 of these and roll them all at once. Okay, check that. It's a demo. I'm trying to somewhat tutorialize this. So what would happen is actually before I even draw this, I would roll the die back into the source. And I did get the white that I was looking for. I would then draw up to my 6 card limit. The dummy player would declare end of round, and now I have 1 round left with all my cards here. I did get this. If I had needed it, and just for giggles, I will go ahead and use mana search. I don't know that that ever helped me in this game, but okay. I'm flush with white. I can only use 1 of them, but and then I have concentration actually would give me access to a white token as well if I needed it, but I'm in pretty good shape here for going down into the dungeon. And I think that's what I want to do. One question, though, is do I want to do anything before diving into the dungeon? I am, after all, next to this space. So that's a consideration. Do I want to flip that by generating movement before I go down into the dungeon? Well, it's only 2 movement. This would have given it to me for free, but no matter what, I'm going to have to play something sideways. I have my white die, so I can play this. Do I have to worry about arcane immunity? I kind of do. If I run into the shadows, they could mess me up pretty bad. But they're the only ones. So out of what? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Out of like 16 tokens, I might have used a couple. I've used 1. So there's 15 tokens there. I've got a 1 in 7 chance of drawing that guy, which I'm not going to... Even if he does show up in a pinch, I'll just block him and call it a day. If he doesn't show up, I can play Whirlwind. And then I'll have 2... I could even play Concentration with Rage for 6. That's 8 points of attack. I could play with Sideways for 9. For 11 points of attack. Or I could play the Ruby Ring for 11 points of attack. And the reason I'm thinking about this is just, do I want to spend one of these cards for movement to flip that tile? And I kind of think I do. Because we're looking at... If I flip the guy I hate right here, I'm kind of in bad shape. But if I get either of these guys, it's just 6 attack. 5, 6, 4, 8. But Cold Swordsmanship's going to help me. Yeah, so unless I pull those shadows, I'm going to be able to kill anything. So I think with just these and Cold Swordsmanship. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play... Yeah, I'm going to play Expose Sideways for 1 point of movement. I'm going to play Double Time for another point of movement. And that gives me enough movement to reveal this tile here. So I'll go ahead and grab that. And that is just terrain, basically. I don't reveal either of these yet. They're there. There's a tomb over here. And then I think I'm just going to dive in to this space. Would have been nice if there was a keep here, but what are you going to do? Yeah. Okay. So then I go into the dungeon, and let's go ahead and see what we get. Okay. Here we go, Moment of Truth. It is the Chimera. Okay. Okay. Good. So then I'm down in the dungeon. I'm allowed to play as though it's night, but I don't really care. I'm just going to play the basic effect. Target enemy doesn't attack. So I don't need to worry about his swift assassin poison attack. Of course, the assassin does nothing because I can't use my units anyway. And now it's just a question of how do I generate that 6 points of attack. I can get 2 from cold swordsmanship. And then another 2 from cold toughness. This is not going to help me either one way or the other. Play rage, so that's 2, 4, 6. That's enough to kill him. He's only resistant to fire. That's nothing. So he is Gonzville at that point. So that is 5 fame. I'll throw him in another pile of dead bodies. Doesn't affect my reputation one way or the other, but I do get 5 fame out of it, which is a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I get a skill, and I choose an advanced action, but that takes place at the end of my turn, and I still have these 2 cards here to play with. Now, I don't think there's too much I can do with concentration, but the ruby ring I can turn into a crystal at least, and another point of fame. So I certainly am going to play that, and I don't think I could even roll this back that last combat, but that's not going to, all it's going to let me do is keep cold toughness in my hand if I play rage. I can't use that for anything either. So I'm going to go ahead and just play the ruby ring. Grab that crystal, gives me a red token, but who cares? And then add that point of fame really quick here. And I think that's it. Yep. So now it's time to just kind of clean up. There was 1 card I didn't use. That's not the end of the world. It's actually going to be more cards because I gained a level, so I'm going to get an advanced action. Let's go ahead and just pick that real quick. Fortunately, it does go to your deed deck, so if I pick Ice Bolt, I can't play it to get a crystal. Intimidate is tempting. I am still planning on using a bunch of influence, but I have so much influence in my hand already, and it does hurt your reputation. I do like having, especially with Expose in my hand, extra ranged attack is nice. Access to crystals is always good. Shield Bash, blocking wise, I just picked up the Guardians, and I've got a skill that lets me prevent attacks. And I have cold toughness, so Shield Bash feels a little redundant to me. Plus, the bad guy doesn't have any blue crystals in his hand. I'll have to see what skills I flop before making this decision, though, because if I want to grab one of the Goldex skills here, that'll limit what I can pick there. So let's take a look. I've got... Okay. So this one, Resistance Break, is basically reduce the armor of one enemy token once a turn based on the resistances that it has. So if you run into something nasty with a bunch of resistances, it doesn't take away the resistances, but it does reduce their armor. So it could potentially be 3 points. It's like toggling cold swordsmanship for 3 points. But given the choice between this and cold swordsmanship, I'm definitely taking cold swordsmanship because this one is effective less often. It's not that often you run into enemies that are too 2 or more resistances. So I find this to be not as helpful. By contrast, I actually really like motivation. To be able to, it's only once a round, but at some point, like right before you hit a city, just grab 2 more cards for free. And then in a solo game, I believe I've read that it says if you have the least fame or are tied for the least fame, well, sorry, if you have the least but you're not tied or are solo, you gain a blue mana token. So since I'm playing solo, this actually not only gives me that, it gives me a blue token to play with too. And I can pick whatever skill I like. As much as I like flight, again, I'm not too worried about terrain right now. And as much as I like having siege, it's just 1 point of siege. Granted, it's once a turn, but I'm really, the last 2 rounds, I'm really like mostly building my hand to have the best chance at having that initial assault on the city go as well as possible. And having 2 cards in my hand is more important to me than having 1 point of siege in my hand, even if the subsequent turn I'm going to also be able to play that siege, if that makes any sense. So I think I'm going to take that, which means I throw this away. I get a dummy player, and there's potion making, which is kind of handy. So if I happen to level again, that's an option. And I think I'm going to grab Ice Bolt for the reasons I was rehearsing a minute ago. So that goes into my deck, which I'm not going to flop. And then the only thing that's left to do is determine whether I'm going to, as a result of that dungeon, the reward for going into the dungeon is you roll a die and either get a spell from the offer or an artifact. So we'll go ahead and roll the die there and see what we get. Right. Oops. And it's an artifact. Okay, so we can go over here to the artifact deck, grab a couple of those and see what we get. This is interesting. Okay. Now the emerald ring is nice for the same reasons the ruby ring is nice. And it gives you more chances for that to happen to be in your hand at the time you're assaulting or something. But having green mana, I don't think in the assault, and remember that's my focus right now. Because next round is all about taking that red city. The Banner of Courage, the red emerald ring basically works like the ruby ring, but it does give you, if you crush it, green and black mana. I don't find green to be as useful as red when your focus is assaulting. There are times like you can power concentration and movement cards and things like that, but you've got your rages and your instincts and your red cape monks by contrast if you have red mana. Banner of Courage, assign this to a unit you control once a round, except during combat. You can flip this card face down to ready this unit. At the beginning of a round, flip it face up again. So basically, I have to wait till this comes up, but if it does come up, I can assign it to a unit and then basically flip it over to use that unit again. Or I could destroy it after having used a bunch of units to use them again. Of course, destroying it loses you a couple of victory points at the end of the game. This is a tough call. Neither of them are like gigantically awesome for me, but I do have a couple of gold units. I'm hoping to get more. So being able to reactivate units could be pretty handy. So I think I'm going to grab the Banner of Courage from these options here. And as a result, this guy's going back over here. And that is the end of night 2. We technically re-roll this, but it's going to get re-rolled anyway. So now we're just cleaning up at this point. These guys go over here. This guy goes here. Flip this over. Turn those guys there and shuffle. These guys are turned around. I get my units back to reset for day. Mana Search is going away. Midnight Meditation is going away. Let's go deal with the dummy player. Now the dummy player is adding red crystal, which I like. Even though I've added red to this deck, I like it better than that green option. This is a little bit more predictable. So then this is refreshed like so. And we've added Flame Wall. We've got some pretty basic cards. Well, Space Bending is a nice card to have. And I am next to a Mage Tower. Bearing that in mind. Shield Bash goes into the dummy player's deck. We'll flip that over. Come over here and give that a shuffle. Okay, and then we'll slide that over. And we got Firebolt. Okay, the bolts keep showing up. We'll clear the unit offer. We have not added any monasteries. So then it is a question of the unit offer once we're going to set this for daytime. And as a result of day, all of these ruins are going to be exposed. I think that's all of them. And I'm next to this guy, so I get to see what he is. It's another Fire Mage. Okay. Well, I could take him out, grab Space Bending, and that would allow me a little bit of leeway with terrain. Now the downside, of course, is it's daytime now, so I'm going to need 5 movement to get into this desert. The reason I would go to the desert rather than here is if I assault the city from here, that provokes this dragon to join the fight. And he's not a happy guy to fight. Another option would be to come here and kill him first before assaulting. Yet another option would be come down here. Depending on what I draw, maybe I come down here and draw a larger hand before moving back up, but it would mean having to move back into here, which isn't great. So keep here, but that's really far away as well. Yeah, depending on what I draw, maybe I just go straight for the city and then deal with the rest of this. I know the other city is going to be potentially up here or here, depending on where I want to put it. Let's see what I draw. I am drawing up to a 6-card hand, and I got the option of adding cards here, and I've got these guys to play with. The first city you reveal in the basic solo conquest is level 5. Now I often will, I don't really know why this is here, but whatever. Now I often will play higher levels to make it a little bit more of a challenge, and then of course you get a higher score for killing that many more units. But we're just playing vanilla here, so we're going to deal with a brown, a purple, and a white when I assault that city. As soon as I'm next to it, I'm going to find out what those are. Day or night, when you're next to a city, you know what units are in there. So if I move to either of these spaces, I'll know what I'm facing. Now anything that has a physical attack is going to have that attack turned into a brutal. But it's only the ones that have a physical attack. So if they have elemental attacks, I actually don't need to worry about it. And then once I conquer it, I can spend 12 influence to buy an artifact. So it kind of depends on what my hand is, but I've got a number of options here for how I'm going to play this. The two things I have left to do is roll the dice in the source here, and then flop the units, and then we can go ahead and take a look at our tactics. In the source, we got 2 golds, which means we actually have to re-roll both of those. And we got 1 gold and a blue, so that actually can stay. So that'll work. And then we just need to flop our units. We've got our elite units on, so this should flop. That's interesting. We got more guardians. Ice golems have their uses, but none of the there's some really spectacular units in the game that haven't flopped, and for some reason I don't know why this is not coming up, but we've got magic talent here and regeneration. Okay, that is where we stand at the dawn of day 3, and we'll go ahead and call that our episode at this point. So what we did this round, we started out here, we blew through here, recruited 2 gold units on the way to capturing a mage tower and a keep, then coming up here, killing a dragon, and going into the dungeon. As a result, we've added yet more cards. We're up to 28. I believe we were at 24 before, so that's an artifact, and I believe an advanced action and 2 spells. We've also added a skill, a pretty nice skill. We've got 2 gold units and 2 level 2 units as well to play with, and still a decent amount of crystals in our inventory to play with going forward. So join us again next time when we take a look at what cards we draw, and therefore what tactic we want to pull, and where we go from here. But until then, we'll call that the end of this episode. If you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Until then, good hunting, Mage Knights.